So I quit my job over 16 years ago to pursue music full time, and I've never looked back. My name's Chris, also known as the Artist Manifest. I do rock and hip hop music. I release songs as an independent artist using DistroKid, TuneCore, and I want to share with you what a day in the life of a full-time artist and musician looks like. And I want to share from two perspectives. One, from as a touring musician, because that's where I got my start. And second, as a songwriter, because that's what the majority of my time is spent now. And so I hope this inspires you. And a lot of you are coming into this journey and finding me halfway through the movie, right? Like I've already been through a lot of stuff that I'm going to share about. I've almost went broke. I slept on the floors, slept in my car, went through hell, to be honest, to get where I am. But sometimes we see the plaque, we see the 800,000 plus monthly listeners on Spotify or whatever it is. But I just want you to know I went through that pain. I went through the struggle. And so I want to share this story to inspire you that you can do this too and to keep going. For starters, I lost my dad to suicide when I was 5 years old. And, the pain, the struggle that normally would take someone out, it made me stronger. And I believe, the crushing, the tough times that we go through actually do make us stronger. It gives us songs to write about. It gives a story to tell. And everybody loves that underdog story. And so I encourage you, push through that pain right now. Don't let it take you out. Write about it and stand on top of it for it to make you stronger. But how I got started in music was because of a death of another dream. I wanted to be a professional skateboarder. I didn't want to do music originally, even though I loved it. And skateboarding culture introduced me to hip hop and rock and punk and all kinds of stuff. But I wanted to be a skateboarder. So I was starting to get sponsored, starting to get free stuff, and was getting closer to the dream. And then I had a skateboarding accident, and so I was like, okay, I can't skateboard anymore. And I'm at this point where it's like, well, what do I do with my life now? Do I take it like my dad? A girl that I thought loved me at the time dumped me as well. And so I didn't have this girlfriend. And so I was in a really dark, depressed state. And this is where, some friends asked me to go to this youth church thing. And I knew there was going to be some girls there. So I went to that. And there's these guys singing on stage, rapping and stuff. I was like, man, this is cool. And so I start hanging out with these guys. And they're teaching me how to rap and sing and pursuing this whole hip hop thing, and I felt like a total dork. Didn't have one rhythmic bone in my body. I actually failed music in public school. So again, I've got that weighing me down. Like, really, Chris, you're going to start trying to rap and stuff now? And so, long story short, I get into this, and I'm watching my skateboarding just totally decline, watching the death of that, while there's this new thing that I'm not even very good at, and it's just like, really, do you keep pushing on this, Chris? Do you keep going? And for some reason, I just loved it. I love to write. I love to write songs. And so, fast forward, I've got like a full-time job. I've got a really good career. I'm making like, 60 grand a year, and I'm living at home still. And so I'm taking all this money and I'm going to the studio every weekend. I'm buying beats. I remember I was buying beats off guys for like $500 a pop. They were ripping me off big time for that. But nonetheless, I was getting beats from, people that were, selling me beats and trying to just figure out this music thing. And I quickly realized, different producers that I've worked with who could make a great song and who could make a so-so song. And so I started working with producers that I knew really make the hits. And all of a sudden, I'm, playing shows. I think I played my first show at a church, and they gave us like maybe $100. And then I realized, wow, I could play here at another church and get paid, $150. And we started to book shows. And I was like, this is cool. And eventually, I got signed. And I know it seems like really fast, but like we went to conferences and did all kinds of stuff. And a buddy of mine that I opened for, is the one that got us signed. And so the lesson that you can learn from there is, you got to get out of your house. You got to meet people, right? And, I thought signing to a deal was going to be the end all be all and that I just get rich and everything was going to work out. Well, number one, I didn't get an advance, right? Number two, they didn't market me like I thought they would. Like I thought I'd released this record and just blew up because I'd released an EP and an album since then. And so, signed to this label, I thought was just going to, like everything was going to work out. And then they connected me with a manager. And I remember talking to the manager. I'm like, look, these are my expenses. Like, these are my monthly expenses that I need to at least cover for me to do this whole touring thing and actually leave my job. And because I was just playing shows on the weekend and making some money, and I had my job, and I was funneling that into my music career. And that's what you should do when you have a job. You should be trying to lower your expenses as much as you possibly can, your living expenses, to fund that into your business, right? And so that's essentially what I was doing. And I was now married at the time with this job and stuff. Like I went through living at my mom's for a very long time and doing music part-time. Like I was doing music at a very low, small level for a very long time. It didn't just, blow up. I was playing all these club shows, bars, open mics, all kinds of stuff. But when I get offered this deal and I think I'm going to be this rock rap star overnight, it didn't happen like that. And so, needless to say, I quit my job, which I shouldn't have done. I quit my job and I'm on tour. And the only way I knew how to make money was touring, was playing shows and selling merch. And I'm on this tour where we've got all these tour dates. And sometimes we'd make some money at the shows. Sometimes we wouldn't. And because I had, the condo that we lived in and there's a credit line attached to it and I had my credit card, I was just swiping that credit card every single day. Like just swiping it. And I'm noticing like, man, the debt just keeps going up and we're not bringing any money in. And so I quickly realized like I've got to book more shows that are paying shows. And so while we were on this tour, I'm like trying to book last minute shows, emailing churches, clubs, bars, whatever it is, just to get another show so we could sell more merch, have a place to stay so we didn't have to sleep in the car or pay for another hotel, because I'm just bleeding money at this point. But I quickly realized that like touring and booking shows was the answer. And I got really good at it. I got really good at performing. And so because the label owned the rights to my music, I wasn't getting paid from that every week like I was with CD Baby, who I used to use back in the day, that would pay me every week. I released this album with this label and they're paying me twice a year. And so I quickly realized I had to book shows. Like I had to book shows. So I'm sending out like 50 emails a day while my buddy was driving the car to the next show. We're getting my manager trying to get me on another paid tour. I remember one paid tour was $150 a night, which I was more than happy about. And we had one spot one spot on the bus, and my wife came with me, and I would just tour with my iPod, right? And just anything to keep the shows booked. And if they were paid, and we'd sell a bunch of merch. And I finally realized like, okay, like gotta have a good show, gotta entertain, gotta have my story, all this stuff. And so I would do like, I think the most shows we ever did was like 150, 180 in a year. But think about like the travel time and like how much I was gone from home. But I realized I could make a really good living doing that, booking shows, getting on tours, and then we'd start to make our own tour posters. And so literally the day in the life in that scenario was either I'm on tour or I'm trying to go on tour. And if I just finished a big tour, then it was, okay, you've got to record. But recording was never the priority back then. It was always like play shows, book shows, get on tour. That's how you survive, right? And then if we got a TV film placement or we got like something from the label, but that was always like surprise money. It was never like, that was not the lifeblood like it is now, which I'm going to share with you in a little bit about now music actually paying all the bills. But like it was touring for like forever. Like, and I loved it and it was great. But the problem is I wasn't implementing a strategy that I call Swiss dollars. I could only make money when I was working. And I was a slave to the label and earning them money, selling them all the records, them keeping 80% of whatever, I make from them, because like I'm like their little touring marketing robot, touring all these different places. Sure, I'm keeping 100% of that because it was not a 360 deal, but they were keeping 80% of any money that I generated from sales online, in store, TV film placements, and they give me my little cut, right? And so I wasn't relying on that at all. It was just tours, and so that was always what the manager would work out. And then we'd carve this little slice to make a new record. And so I'm not really developing my songwriting chops at this point. I'm not developing my production chops cause, I'm not like a producer, but I do produce songs. I come up with the ideas and what. I don't play music, but I'd come up with the song ideas and everything like that. And so, but I would always hire people out that would help me make great records. And so I saw that eventually I grinded it out on the road. I built up this touring business, this performing business. While some of my other friends I noticed, they were building and grinding it out in the studio as a songwriting business and producer business. And what's interesting is I built up a touring business, but as soon as I stopped getting paid, which is very, very powerful. Where my producer songwriters, they're building up a business and a rapport of songs and get their songs and that other artists would cut. Like I remember my buddy Adam and Azri, they would cut all these songs, and they took all the risk to write all these songs and produce all these songs and pitch them to artists, and then finally they get one with like Chris Brown or something like that, and eventually now the royalties come in for that. But now that they're a songwriter and that, they get paid forever for that song without having to do any work. And then you get a Bieber placement. And now, Bieber's the one touring that because they own the publishing, they wrote on it or whatnot, right? They get paid. So for me, I'm building this business of touring, where my friends are building this business of songwriting, where once they've done the work, they continue to get paid on it forever. And so that's powerful. That's called Swiss dollars. That's called sales while I sleep soundly. Well, push fast forward, I'm touring from 2006 to 2014. So about, what is that? That's like 12 years, I think it is, if my math is right. 8 years. About 8 years of just grinding it out on the road hardcore. Well, what's cool is I eventually got my records back, right? And after 2014, I stopped releasing songs and albums with the label, and I went independent. And I had learned some things. And so I started to really pull back from the shows and now releasing songs by myself. But plus, I started to get my babies back. I started to get my albums back. And so all of a sudden, I'm getting insane royalties, and I'm like monthly. And all of a sudden, every year I'd get another record back, or every year and a half I'd get another record back from the album because they had some of my records for like 7 years, other records for 5. So this is interesting that I'm touring for about 6 years, 7 years full time. And now all of a sudden I'm starting to get my babies back. Well, all of a sudden this income's coming in from my older records that I had toured and pushed so hard. And now I'm releasing my own records. And yes, I had to front the bill for those to make them. But then I get 100% of the royalties. And so all of a sudden, I'm watching myself going from a full-time touring artist to starting to dial back on the touring. And now my songwriting is going up. And I'm getting control of all my albums. And since this income is going up, but now my monthly selling income is going up from my music and stuff. And I've learned some stuff. I'm still playing some shows. But what's so cool now is when I go to play a show, I'm not a robot for the label anymore. I'm promoting my business. I'm promoting my songs. I go perform a show. Maybe people don't buy merch, but they go home and I see the streams go up. I see the downloads go up, and I benefit from that. And so now I'm at a place where I think it was in 2000 and maybe was it 2019? I started to really pull back from the road because I slowed down a little bit in 2014 because I had my daughter and whatnot. But then it was about 5 years later where I decided to take 1 year off. And then, of course, that 1 year turned into COVID and turned into 3 years. And now I don't really play shows anymore. I miss it. I'm going to do it again at some point. But right now I haven't been playing shows. And so what have I been focusing on? I've been focusing on songwriting. And writing songs for TV film, writing songs for me as an artist. And one way I've been doing this and what my day looks like is coming up with song ideas, try to write every single day, but I want to write with purpose. I want to write and do songs with guys for TV film because that's very lucrative. We just got offered another $1,200 placement for a song I wrote months and months ago. And so, we have all those cranking, but you might be in a spot okay, well, how do I get started in this? Well, first of all, let's just cover the touring thing. For touring, you can start today busking. You can start online, playing live, and then having an online tip jar and people giving you money. You can start today. You can start doing covers. Just start. Try and play shows, book shows, pick up the phone. Contact other bands. Can you open? You got to hustle. You got to want this, right? You got to want this. I don't have anyone on my shoulder right now telling me to write songs. So I have to have a purpose. So I have a whiteboard right here, and I have a list of all these different producers that I want to work with. Because one way to, especially in the TV film world, is if you have a good song idea, you just got to find maybe a producer that can produce that song. that can finish, play all the music, record it, make it sound awesome, mix it, get it mastered, and then we work together to find someone to do the artwork. Sometimes my wife will do it, sometimes, their person will do it, but we split everything 50-50. The master, the songwriting, the expenses if it's artwork or maybe a lyric video or something like that. And so there's like no costs, right? Except my time. And so, but that means I got to be good for someone to want to work with me, right? Like if I'm hitting up producers, I got to give them a good song idea. And so I got to I'm grinding it out, writing songs, developing that. But what you don't want to do is compare yourself. Don't compare yourself, and I don't want to compare myself to, if I've been songwriting full time now, more hardcore for maybe, 2-3 years. Well, some of these guys have been doing it for a decade. So I can't complain that I'm not getting TV film placements every day, every week like they are when I haven't been doing it for a fraction of as long. I haven't written a quarter of as many songs. So don't compare yourself, right? Same thing when you start comparing yourself to get on bigger tours or whatnot, and you can go shoot. I always want to tell you, shoot for the bigger tours, shoot for as big as you can, right? Shoot for the moon, because if you miss, you'll land among the stars, right? The Les Brown quote. But you want to make sure that you're writing, you're hitting it every day, you're putting the work in. And so how this would look right now, if I had a full-time job as well, I'd be writing on the way to work in the car, on the subway. I'd be writing on the way home. On my lunch break, I would go eat alone and I would write songs. If it was touring business that I wanted to build up, I would be trying to book shows in the morning, make my list of who I'm going to hit up, who I need to email, what managers, what booking agents, what relationships I need to develop, right? Like when I look at the feature artists, like when I want to release a song as Manifest, I don't want to just release another song as me, even though that's fine. It's like, who do I want to write with? And I was listening to a song last night of an artist that I've always been a fan of, and I said to my wife, like, oh, I should do a song with him. And so what did I do with that idea? I immediately emailed my producer, because my producer might actually have a relationship with this person, because the artist I want to work with is a drummer and a singer, and my producer was also a drummer, and I almost guarantee he's got a relationship with this guy, and so he could probably easily do the introduction. But now, if I want to make that dream come true of this feature, I got to come up with a really good song idea. Like if I'm aiming for a big feature, like sure, I might have to pay money, might have to pay publishing, might have to pay a little piece of the master. I might not have to pay any money because my fan base is pretty massive and it would benefit them as well too. But again, I'm the one reaching out to them, right? So, but I got to make that song great, and we'll have to put together a really good demo to pitch it to this other artist. And so I'm going to try and grow my artist career doing that. And I will have to pay out of my pocket completely for the production. That's no 50-50 or anything like that. For the featured artist, I'd probably rather that I just pay them off and keep most of the master to myself. Now, when I'm writing for TV and film, it's not almost 99% of the time, like you're splitting it 50-50. Like the producer that I'm working with for TV and film, and as a songwriter, they're in it not to release it as a song. You're writing because you're hoping you're going to get a trailer that's going to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? Or TV film placements that are paying thousands compared to trying to make money just on the streams. And so you always want a 50-50 deal on the master and the publishing, right? So that's kind of how that works. And so when I wake up in the morning, I'm thinking about songs. I'm blocking off time to write songs. I'm looking for beats, tracks. I'm listening to stuff. When I'm watching movies, we're watching that new series on Amazon with Chris Pratt, and there's a line that was said, and it was an idea for a song. And so I'm constantly collecting song ideas. I'm writing every single day, trying to just get ideas so that I have this quiver, this amount of songs. And then I'm making my list of different producers that I want to reach out to. And so now, instead of reaching out to promoters or booking agents every single day, I'm reaching out to a whole bunch of different people to write with. Like I remember my friend Nasri, the guy in the band in Magic, he's the lead singer of Magic, wrote the song "Why You Gotta Be So Rude." I was in that room when he was writing that Christmas song for Justin Bieber. Him and Adam were working on it, and this is before it even blew up. And they wrote it for him, pitched it to him, they got it. I remember hearing the song "Crawl" for Chris Brown before it was when Nasri and Adam had produced it, and Nasri was singing on it, and then next thing you know, Chris Brown has cut the song. When I was touring and grinding it out on the road, they were grinding it out in the studio, writing songs, pitching them. And so what is that I'm doing now? I'm writing songs and I'm pitching them. I'm pitching them to producers for TV and film. I am pitching them to artists that I want to work with. There's two types of songwriting I'm doing. One is for me is manifest and releasing songs, working with bigger artists that I can tap into their fan bases. Something I teach all the time in my Get More Fans Challenge, which you can click the link below, 10xyourfanbase.com/live challenge for that if you want coaching. The second is I'm writing songs for TV and film and sending them to producers. Hey man, here's a song idea I think would be great for this TV show or trailer or whatever, right? But how do you get into this? Well, you make it a study. So I looked at a whole bunch of artists that are making the kind of music that I feel I could also make or write for TV and film. I'm listening to it and I'm coming up with song ideas. I'm doing research. Who produced this? You know, who's the TV film company on this? Like who's doing this? And I start to realize that like it's its own little world of TV film and stuff. And these are the music supervisors. These are the festivals and different things or conferences where I can learn more about this, and I make it a study. Just like I quickly realized, like, who books rock tours, who books metal tours, who books, you know, these festivals, these conferences. Like, I made a study of that for touring, right, and developed all these relationships, promoters, and promoters would bring us in every year for this festival, and you build a relationship. And, you know, I went up the scale on as far as stages. First, I was on the side stage. Then I was headlining the side stage. Then I had an opening slot on the main stage to the point where I'm middle of the day main stage. And then I'm headlining main stage, right? Like, this is how it works. It's steps. And you need to have a longer time period and dream of your goal. Like, it doesn't just happen overnight, right? Like, you need to have a longer window, right? And obviously, you want to get there as fast as you can. But stop comparing yourself to someone who's been doing this for years or a decade, and you've been doing it for a few months, and you're not where you want to be, right? So I hope that's inspired you today. If you want more help and you want coaching with me, I have this thing called the Get More Fans 5-Day Challenge. It's 5 days straight where I do Q&A when you get a VIP ticket to ask me questions. Just go to 10xyourfanbase.com/live challenge. I show you how to grow a fan base, blow it up so that you can eventually be full-time like I am. If this has inspired you, this is something that you want. And for some of you might not want to do it full time. You want to keep your job and just do music on the side. That's fine. But if you want to do this full time as a career, well, then I'm your guy to help you to get there faster. You know, you don't have to take as long as I did. You don't have to go broke like I did. Like I don't know if I shared, I went $30,000 in debt, right? Like I actually had to go back to my job after one tour for a week. My old job offered me, you know, like a few days back, and they actually tried to get me to come back to my job, but I was like, no, I'm free now, and I figured out this music thing. I don't want to go back, right? And so but that requires you, right? Like I can point you in the right direction. I can answer some of your questions and help you avoid tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in mistakes. But it's up to you if you want this bad enough. And, you know, the tickets are ridiculously affordable, especially even for a VIP ticket, right? Like I normally charge $1,500 an hour to coach with me, but you're getting in a ticket to ask me questions each day, right? And also hear the questions of other artists that are on this challenge for a fraction of that. And an artist the other day, because I want to call out this mentality, because you need to get rid of this broke mentality. He's like, oh, can I pay you once I get paid or whatnot? And I'm like, dude, if you can't figure out how to pay for a ticket that's less than $100 right now, it might go up later on, but right now it's less than $100. If you can't figure out that, then you're not going to figure out the rest of this stuff. If you can't see the value that working with someone who's played thousands of shows, toured 22 different countries, sold hundreds of thousands of albums, and you can't figure out how to come up with that little bit of money, how are you going to do the rest of this stuff? Because what I'm asking you to do to step up and to show up for 5 days, for 2 hours a day, that's nothing compared to what it takes to be successful in this music career, in this music industry. You know, whether you're a touring artist or a songwriter, There is hard days, my friend, but you've got to push through it. You can push through it. And I want to remind you that a fighter isn't someone who never fails. A fighter is someone who never quits. Go to 10xyourfanbase.com/live challenge. Get a ticket. Look forward to helping you. I hope this extra long video has been inspiring. If it has, please leave a comment, like it, subscribe, and let me know what other content you might want me to share. Peace.